Here we back. Yeah, we back. Now, today we got a very serious video. Now, today's video is going to be a follow-up video to one I dropped a couple weeks ago entitled, "The President of Niger Calls Out France for Supporting Terrorism in Africa." Now, of course, in that video, I was reacting to the bombshell interview released by the President of Niger, General Chiani, right? Bombshell interview, legendary interview, where he pretty much exposed everything in front of the world. Now, today's video is going to be a follow-up to those developments. So today on RTN, which is the local media in Niger, right? Radio Télévision de Niger, more information was revealed to the public in terms of the destabilization strategy of our adversaries, as well as their terrorist proxies. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, right? So on the news broadcast, they revealed two scenarios, two methods of choice to destabilize and remove the current regime from power and also restore the so-called democratically elected president back to his office. So anyways, man, I'm going to jump into some clips from the broadcast today, and I'm going to come in and out of my commentary. Let's go.
Two items were on the agenda for this meeting: reviewing the terms of their agreements, planning and conducting the operations they will soon carry out against Niger. Regarding this last point, two scenarios will be executed soon. The first scenario is related to the approach of the month of Ramadan, a period of devotion and especially of privation during which Muslims will need the necessary conditions to carry out their fasting. To break their resilience and undermine their faith, France is considering to destroy the national economic fabrics through the sabotage of the pipeline, to economically suffocate Niger, and to manipulate certain economic operators to cause a surge in commodity prices, foodstuffs of primary necessity.
Now, in that part of the broadcast, they touched on the economic destabilization aspect of the strategy, right? Basically talking about attacking the oil pipeline, which has been attacked multiple times in the past year. I spoke about that as well. Take a look up on the screen. If you remember back over the summer, back in June, take a look at this headline, June 22nd. Niger confirms, and like I always do, I'm going to change the word rebel to terrorist because they like to play word games. So instead of saying rebels, like the Western media likes to do, I'm going to say terrorists, the appropriate term, right? So Niger confirms anti-junta terrorists are behind the oil attack, right? Take a look at the article. Niger's military government has confirmed that terrorists damaged an oil pipeline carrying crude oil to Benin. The Patriotic Liberation Front, which is fighting for the release of the former president Mohamed Bazoum, who was overthrown in a coup last July, said it was behind the attack earlier this week. Now, timeout. Those of us with common sense understand that these so-called terrorists have no incentive to attack an oil pipeline. They receive no benefits whether the oil pipeline is active or if it's destroyed. They receive no benefit either way. So the only logical conclusion is that these individuals have some type of foreign sponsors that are using them as proxies or independent contractors to carry out a job. Let's continue. Take a look up on the screen. The Rebel Patriotic Liberation Front, also known as the FPL, was set up in August 2023, a month after Niger's democratically elected president Mohamed Bazoum was overthrown in a military coup. So this terrorist group just sprang up out of nowhere, just spawned out of nowhere after the democratically elected president, so-called, was removed from power, right? And magically, by happenstance, by coincidence, they managed to be equipped with arms, ammunition, explosive devices to carry out attacks on critical infrastructure. Now, keep in mind, these men have no jobs, no businesses, no form of revenue, and no education. But for whatever reason, they have an endless supply of ammunition. Now, back to what I said earlier. The fact that these guys are consistently attacking an oil pipeline shows that they're working in the interest of some foreign powers behind the scenes, because you're attacking critical infrastructure that can be used to benefit not only yourself, but also your family if you were an upstanding citizen, right? So not only are you depriving yourself of these economic benefits that could come if the pipeline is operational, when you attack and destroy critical infrastructure, the entire population is the one that suffers, right? But obviously, when you're carrying out a job and working in the interest of some foreign powers behind the scenes, you don't take these things into account. Now, let's continue. One major concern is how the stalled pipeline operation might impact Niger's overall economic growth. The World Bank had projected that the West African nation's economy would rebound and grow the fastest in Africa this year at a rate of 6.9%, with oil exports as a key boost. Now, as you can see, this oil pipeline was set to be a key asset in terms of generating revenue. But as you can see, there's obviously some hidden hands behind the scenes working tirelessly to make sure that doesn't happen. Now, when it comes to the terrorists, to me, they're simply pawns on a chessboard. Like I said, these guys are illiterate. These guys probably got a second grade education, probably can't even do long division. So I'm not really worried about them. These guys are just pawns and puppets on the chessboard, man. These guys are not really complex thinkers or high-level intellectuals carrying out a long-term plan or a vision. These guys are just crash dummies to the highest degree. They're simply carrying out a job on behalf of somebody else that we can't see. Now, let's continue. Now, on the bright side, those same terrorists that carried out that attack on the pipeline back in June, the so-called Patriotic Liberation Front, take a look up on the screen. The Niger terrorists fighting for the ousted president's release hand over their weapons. So back in November, a couple months ago, those terrorists actually surrendered to the military government in Niger. They laid down their arms, right? They surrendered. Take a look up on the screen. On November 1st, the FPL spokesman Idrissa Madaki and 3 other members turned themselves in separately in 2 towns near the Libyan border, according to Niger's army and national television. So that's the one bright side, right? That terrorist group turned themselves into the authorities and have handed over their weapons. Now, here's the bad news. Just a month after that happened, a whole different terrorist organization has began raining terror in the region. Take a look up on the screen. La Quara, the new armed group wreaking havoc on the Nigeria and the Niger border. My God. Now, back in December, I think it was December 13th, there was another attack on that same oil pipeline by this terrorist group, La Quara. And if you watch General Chiani's bombshell interview on Christmas Day that I reacted to, he actually mentioned that these individuals, this terrorist group, La Quara, he said they are essentially independent contractors working on behalf of a Western nation. I don't want to get my channel destroyed, but I'm just going to say this terrorist group, according to General Chiani, is on the payroll of a prominent Western nation, right? I'm not going to say their name, but y'all can read between the lines, right? I don't want to get my channel, abolished. We got to keep the channel going. So y'all can read between the lines. If y'all watch that video, you already know what's up. But like I said before, there is no tangible benefits for attacking an oil pipeline, right? Unless you're being paid to do so. Because when you think about it, it's really a crime that doesn't make sense, right? Let's say, for example, you are a terrorist in the Sahel, right? Hypothetically, right? You're an illiterate, unemployed terrorist. Why would you go destroy a pipeline that's going to bring economic benefits to the entire community? Why don't you go attack, the central bank or something like that? Why don't you go attack something that can bring concrete, tangible benefits to your life? Something that can actually elevate your existence. Because when you go attack the pipeline, you destroy the pipeline, you're still going to be broke and dusty. You're still going to be a failure. You're still going to be an illiterate booty scratcher in the middle of the Sahelian desert with no opportunity for economic advancement. So your life has not changed by you destroying the pipeline, unless you were contracted to do so, unless you are in the pay of some foreign sponsors. Now, when it comes to those foreign sponsors that are working behind the scenes, the hidden hand behind the scenes, when you attack the pipeline, that benefits them, right? Because you're destabilizing the current regime in power. You're destroying their revenue sources. And when you destroy the revenue sources, you're destroying the economy. And when you destroy the economy, the average citizen, the common man and woman is going to rise up against their leaders, because that's human nature, right? When the economy's in the toilet, the citizens are unhappy. And when the citizens are unhappy, they turn against their leaders. And when they turn against their leaders, that's when you get civil unrest. That's when you get mass protests. And also, that's when you get the Western media running articles and slander campaigns against the regime, talking about, look at the incompetence of the military government. They cannot protect the critical infrastructure. They cannot protect the population, right? Ever since we left, look how everything has gone downhill, right? That's what they're going to be saying in the Western media. That's going to be the mainstream narrative, right? They're not going to be talking about who is supplying the weapons and ammunition. They're not going to be asking the real questions. They're simply going to be attacking the regime in power, right? That's what you call propaganda warfare. Now, let's continue.
As the blessed month of Ramadan approaches to conduct suicide operations, mass hostage takings at the level, boarding schools for girls and boys in schools in Niger.
Proxy terrorism, it plans to carry out spectacular operations to target Niger's economic structures and, above all, conduct suicide mass hostage-taking operations in girls and boys boarding schools in certain regions of the country to demand the release and reinstatement of the ousted president.
Now, if you remember, all those pipeline attacks, they were all calling for the reinstatement of the so-called democratically elected president, Mohamed Bazoum, who is currently still detained. He is currently still under captivity, right? He's still in captivity. He's been in captivity for going on a year and a half, right? So on the broadcast today, they said that the second destabilization strategy, which will be put into effect besides the pipeline attacks, is that terrorists are going to begin targeting schools, right? Areas where children are congregating, right? They're going to begin taking children, boys and girls, hostage as collateral to demand the reinstatement of the democratically elected president. Now, if you're an individual with common sense, if you're a three-dimensional thinker, you have to ask yourself, why does a so-called democratically elected president, who was deemed as a darling of the West, right? Why does he have the support and backing of terrorist groups? Just think about that for a second. Why does a so-called democratically elected president, who had the support of all the Western powers around the world, why does he have terrorist groups calling for his reinstatement? Why do you have terrorist groups standing behind you, standing in support of you? You have to ask yourself that question. Now, one thing I love about the AES, right? One thing I love about the AES is the fact that they don't keep anything a secret. They let us know everything that's going on behind the scenes. Because if they didn't come out beforehand and let us know beforehand, and we just got caught up by surprise by this, imagine you woke up next week on a Tuesday and you took a look at the news and you found out that hundreds of innocent boys and girls have been taken hostage by terrorists, right? That are demanding the reinstatement of the democratically elected president. That would have been some of the biggest psychological warfare and some of the biggest propaganda warfare that we would have ever seen. In terms of destabilization, just think about the parents of those children, right? Imagine your daughter or your son got taken hostage in a hostage situation by these terrorists, right? These suicide bombers. Even if you were the biggest supporter of the AES, even if you were the biggest supporter of the current governments in power, you would have immediately been converted to the opposition side, because you would have felt like the current administration, the current government in power, doesn't have the capacity to protect your children. And the number one thing that the current governments in power have to their benefit in terms of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger is the fact that their citizens are behind them, right? So no matter what propaganda the Western media might put out and disseminate, at the end of the day, their citizens are firmly behind them. But once you get a situation like this, if the terrorists ended up attacking the children, some of that confidence from the population would have been lost inevitably. And that's what you call high-level psychological warfare. And then, of course, the Western media would have been calling for foreign intervention, right? We have to go in and rescue the population. We have to go in and save the babies, right? We have to mobilize the troops and go into Niger and save the babies. And next thing you know it, foreign troops would have been on the ground, Mohamed Bazoum would have been back into office, and President Chiani's regime would have been toppled. And like I said earlier, similar to attacking the oil pipeline, these terrorists would get no benefit from taking children as hostages. That's not going to be any personal benefit to them unless, like I said, they're working in the interests of some foreign sponsors, of some foreign backers. At the end of the day, you can see that these guys are simply acting in the interest of some foreign powers behind the scenes, working in the interest of some hidden hands that we can't see. And it's actually very intelligent of them for them to get ahead of it, right? Stay one step ahead of it by ringing the alarm and letting everybody know what's going on, because if this would have caught everybody by surprise, that would have been a big blow. That would have been a big blow. You know, imagine you woke up, like I said, imagine you woke up next week and then you see, 300 children in Niger kidnapped by terrorists. Man, that would have been bad, right? And the terrorists talking about, we want President Mohamed Bazoum back in office. Do you know how many people would have been like, man, put Bazoum back in office to save the babies? Man, I'm telling you, that would have been a real crazy destabilization strategy that probably low-key would have worked. Right? It probably would have worked. But now that they got ahead of it, obviously, it's going to make it harder for the terrorists to carry out their duties. But man, if they would have put that into effect and they would have caught us by surprise, that would have been a big blow for the AES. That would have been a big win for our enemies as well. That would have been a big victory for our adversaries. But yeah, man, that's the reality. That's the reality of the world we live in as black men, my brothers. That's the reality of the world we live in. Our adversaries will literally stoop so low to involve children in their geopolitical games. That's how it really gets, my brothers. That's how it really gets. That's how it really gets. These individuals have no respect. Even black children will be sacrificed at the altar to maintain their geopolitical interests. Crazy. Insane. Anyways, man. It's your boy Neferkari, that's Salim, back in the building. Yes, indeed. Cash App in the description. Support the channel, man. Support the album. Peace.
No. Feel like I'm 75. Know that your team be full of them traders. You know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we on. said that she ready to come be my wife, yeah, hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word in this bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I mean no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news. Back in my city, they loving me. Standing alone, I'm 100 deep. Enemy plotting and still in reach. They trying to make sure that we underneath. Trying to make sure that we never make it. Coming for power, come get acquainted. Coming for everything that I wanted. Feeling like Drake, but I really wrote it. Feeling like Kendrick, I'm checking names. Gotta roll up while I go insane. Got so much stress, I been gained weight. Stuffing these racks in this Louis case. One thing for certain, I'm about to check. Keep it 100 and nothing less. Stick with the family since day one. Had to stay down till my day come. Had to stay down, but I'm never patient. Hop on the mic and I'm motivated. Hop on the mic and I drive a classic. Haters can't see me, they copping glasses. Back in the studio making magic. Got a new tape and it's in production. Back on my business, I got a budget. Staying low key when I'm out in public. Feel like I'm 75. Know that your team be full of them traitors, you know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we on. She said that she ready to come be my wife, yeah, hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word in this bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I mean no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news. Making it news, making it news, breaking the rules, yeah, know that we making it news.